Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Ainsley Keller with SK. I see attendees coming in. We have a large list of people that are attending, just like last week. So this is great. We're going to give it just a minute and let them come in, and then we'll get started. You should be able to see my screen. Let us know if you can't. All right, looks like we have a good group of folks. We'll just keep letting people come in as they can. Again, my name is Ainsley Keller. I manage our North American practice here at SK. We've got some partners on the line. We've got existing customers. We even have some prospects. So welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today. This is the second webinar in a series of webinars. We started last week with our EFT expanded session. So if you missed that, feel free to reach out to us and request a copy of that recording. Today, we're going to focus on supply chain financing, our solution there, and our P-card integration, which is brand new. Our supply chain financing solution has been around for a while. We've seen an uptick in interest around that. So Chuck Schrader is going to present that, and then Tina Ash will show you the P-card integration. Before I go on, Chuck and Tina, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves so that I know that your mute button works and they can hear you okay. So Mr. Schrader, over to you.
Hi there. Yeah, I am Chuck Schrader, and I am a senior solution architect here at SK Soft.
Okay, and Tina Ash?
I am Tina Ash, and I'm a solution architect here at SK Soft.
Wonderful. So if you didn't hear them, I imagine you can hear me, but if you didn't hear them, please put that in the chat. I'll mention the chat. We had a great turnout last week and lots of people asked questions in the chat. Keep that coming this week. Make sure that if you've got a question during Chuck or Tina's presentation, go ahead and just put it in the chat panel and we will make sure to ask it. This session is being recorded, so Kelly and the marketing team will send out a recording to everybody that has attended. But without further ado, we're going to get started. I am going to hand this over. Actually, I have one more slide. Forgive me, I'm a salesperson, so I can't help but pitch a little bit about who we are as a company. Obviously, there are a lot of familiar names on the attendee list today, but some of you might be new to us or were referred to us by your partner. So SK Soft, also known as SK Global, we've been in business 30 years and have been primarily focused on banking and treasury solutions for the D365 market, previously known as Dynamics AX. Some of you that might be interested, we recently released some of our e-banking and treasury solutions on Business Central platform. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any interest or know anyone that is interested in some of our banking and treasury automation for the BC market. We have over 1,600 customers globally. So while the team that's presenting to you today is in Eastern time and represents our North American group, we have a full practice in Europe. And then we're also looking to grow into Asia Pac and LATAM over the next year or two. What you're going to see today is all about commercial configurable solutions that integrate with your banking or financing platforms. And that's really what our expertise is about. We started in the banking and automation practice. We grew that into a light treasury module that lots of treasury teams using D365 enjoy. And today we're going to show you some of those add-on features that we still consider in our wheelhouse. And really, these two features were completely built by customer demand, which has been really cool. So as an existing customer or partner on the line, we'll give you some action items at the end of this call for how you too can contribute to our roadmap. So I am going to hand it over to you, Chuck, and you can talk about supply chain financing. Let me stop sharing my screen. There we go, sir. All yours. I don't think I see your screen unless you guys do, and I'm missing something.
I do not. Chuck, are you?
Oh, there we
Nope,
go.
now I see it.
Yep, and if Chuck, you're
There we go.
talking,
Yep.
oh, there you are. Okay,
Yep,
awesome.
right. So, so yeah, I just wanted to go over a little bit about what supply chain finance is for those. Hopefully, a lot of you are familiar if you signed up for today. But supply chain finance is basically I have an invoice that's due. I have a supply chain finance provider who is kind of signed up these vendors to participate in this supply chain finance process. It allows really a win for both sides. So from me as the payer, I can just send these invoices to my provider, and those invoices are still going to be due on the normal due date. So a lot of times this is going to be with invoices, particularly with longer terms. So if I have 90-day terms, I still owe this invoice at 90 days. On the flip side, the payee, they can get their money early at a discount. So if they don't want to wait the 90 days, but will take a discount to get their money early, the provider arranges that with them to give them their money early. But for what the provider does with the eventual payee really is not a lot of concern to me, again, because I'm always going to owe the provider on the given original due date. So I get to still hold on to my money as long as possible. But the payee gets to get their discounted payment a little bit early, or a lot early in some cases. So I'm not going to, I know this might be a little bit of an eye chart, especially if you're looking on a laptop or something, but just kind of go through the process. Every day I'm creating invoices. I designate them with a given method of payment. There is a process that runs automatically to pick those up and send those to the provider. Again, from that point forward, the provider and the payee could work out discounted terms, but that's not really for me to worry about. An optional step is the provider could send me back an acknowledgement that says, yes, we accepted all of these invoices. One of the, I guess, rare reasons why they wouldn't accept it would be as if you sent them an invoice that was already past due, something like that, they might reject that. Or if you sent them for a vendor that they didn't have set up yet in their supply chain system, again, they might reject it there. So we can read those acknowledgement files back, automatically pull them down, read them in, and then show you if anything was rejected that we had sent. As they become due, the provider, there's one of two things that usually happens. Either the provider sends you nothing, and you just know that because they're due that you owe the provider that money at that point. The other one is more proactive one is that provider sends you a file back that says this is what is due at that point, and then we would send them the money. So again, at the end of that period, whenever on the due date, we're going to owe this provider the money, not the original vendors. So we need to switch that payable at the very last moment. So at that very last moment, again, when it becomes due, up until that point, the payable resides with the original vendor. At the very last minute, we flip that payable from being due to the original vendor to now being due the provider, and you can pay that either individually or in bulk. A lot of times they'll group those by currency, so anything that's due for that given due date can all be sent as a single payment to that provider. So again, that's a flow of the system, and then I will go back into D365 so we can see some of this in action. So it starts out with, let's go into create and send. So it starts out with the invoice is just being entered in a normal invoice journal. When you set up a provider, you tell it, and I'll kind of go here, you tell it what method of payment that all is going to go through the supply chain finance. So in this case, I have Bank of America set up as a provider, and I have a method of payment called BOASCF. So any invoices that get picked that get created with that method of payment are going to automatically get sent to Bank of America as a provider. By the way, there are banks that do this, like Bank of America, Wells Fargo. They have their own supply chain finance process and platform. There also are independent parties like Prime Revenue that set outside of this, outside of a bank, and they're just really financing companies or that also do the supply chain finance process. So it could be a bank or it could be a like I said, an outside finance company. We build these formats out as needed. So we don't have a ton of them built out yet, but Prime Revenue is one of the leading non-bank providers. Bank of America, at least in 2022, was the leading bank, a U.S. Bank provider of supply chain finance services. So again, some of the popular ones are already built out. If they're not, and you request them build out, we will build them out, and it doesn't cost anything more to build them out or to pick an existing one. But we set up the providers, you tell it, again, the method of payment is the key, and then the other key is it due dates based or is it settlement file based? So if it's settlement file based, that means we're expecting this file to come back from the provider that tells us what's due this week. If it's due date based, then it's just a knowledge that this is due this week and that we owe this money. So again, we set the invoices up. We go through this create and send. If you're familiar with any of the EFT products that we talked about last week, they all have a very similar create and send process. This is doing the same thing. It's creating this file and sending it out. So if we look in the file details, these just have a single payment in it, but they have the file gets sent to the vendor or to the provider, and they let us know again if it's all is well, or they'll send us acknowledgement back if something is not good. Once we send these out, again, the payable at this point, in this case, it's Ohio Grain. So this payable would still be sitting with Ohio Grain. At some point, we're going to get to the due date, and the process is going to run. This batch process is going to run, and we'll try this again right now. I had that up and I accidentally closed it, so we'll run the batch process one more time. Let me actually save this here first, and then I'll run it one more time. Sorry about that. I accidentally closed this earlier. I had it ready to go. And we'll go to sysadmin and we'll pull up the batch job here one more time. And again, this batch job is running on a regular basis. It can pull the files from your provider into Bank Fabric. We'll talk about Bank Fabric here in a minute, and it can pull those then into D365 from that point. So we'll go ahead and run this batch job. Hopefully we'll see it take off here. I had a settlement file sitting in here, and we can hopefully see, yes, it just moved it over to archive. So then we'll go to the settlements and see what happened. So if we go to the settlement screen, we can see that the settlement got read in just now. We look at the details on it, and we can tell if it's a matched. If for some reason a settlement would come in that's different than we're expecting, you'll see on that first screen that it says it needs reviewed, and on this screen you will be able to tell if things matched or they didn't match. But we can see if we go to this payment journals, I had mine to set up to create the journals. This is really moving the payable across. So if I go to this journal, we'll see that this original invoice to this vendor got resolved and it got moved to a temporary holding account. If we back out here, we will be able to see on the invoice journal that this got taken back out of that temporary holding account and now is being paid to Bank of America. In this case is our vendor that we're paying. So it got moved from the payable, the original payable to the original vendor, to now it's a payable that is set up for Bank of America. And this just creates the invoice. It doesn't generate the payment itself. the payment itself would get picked up in just your normal payment run. If we go back to the provider here, we can see this little switchboard. This determines how we move these over. So when we move it over, it's to go from, if it's a USD one, it's to account called BOA, but I could have, for instance, a Canadian bank account and a USD bank account, and then have these go to different bank accounts based on their currency. On the providers themselves, there's other settings as to, do you want them grouped by currency? Do you want them grouped by vendor and currency? Or actually you can just have them stay as individual invoices, but they're, again, all will be paid to your supply chain provider and not to your original vendors. So that's kind of the process there. It's pretty quick to explain, but it does save a lot of interaction. We had just a recent client that gave us a lot of feedback on this, that they were actually thinking about either doing away or certainly not expanding their supply chain finance process. They implemented this supply chain finance, our SCF product, and now they're looking to expand it because this has made that whole process much easier for them to deal with. Before, it was a lot of manual steps to move the invoices around and to load up the invoices and get them to the provider and get the acknowledgements back. Now that it's 100% automated, they are looking to expand that process. I didn't look in chat. Was there any
Robert
question?
has one question about what the posting date is. He says, what is the posting date?
Yep. So the posting date either can be the current date, and it's blanked out here if I change to not use the defaults. It can be the current date, or it can be the original invoice due date. So you can leave the due date as is, or you can make it the current date. As you can see, there's other options. There's other options here. Again, we try to make this, like all of our products, we try to make it very configurable so you don't have to customize it. So do you want to post the journals or not? Do you only want to post them if it's a perfect match, which is generally the case that you'd want to do. So we try to make these things as configurable as possible. And as Ainsley said, we've had this out for a year or so, a couple years. So as requests come in, we add options. We added several options to this just this year, including some for the European. Have some interesting pieces with split payments on VAT taxes and things like that. So this whole feature was driven by demand in the first place, and now any enhancements we make to it, same way, driven by market demand.
Chuck, did you say the turnaround for formats is about what our existing customers are used to when they're doing like a new EFT format, or is the like Wells Fargo Prime Revenue B of A, they take us a little bit longer, about the same?
About the same. There's kind of offsetting factors there. The formats themselves are a lot simpler, but typically there is 1, 2, or 3 formats. There can be up to 3. There can be the original format of the file that goes to the provider in the first place. There can be an acknowledgement file optionally, and there most times is a settlement file. So there's most times 2 formats, sometimes 3, but they're much simpler formats. So we still quote about that 2-week time frame from getting a format request to getting it in the library.
And what version of SK are you running in this demo? I think that answers Corey's question.
This is our 12.0 product that came out.
The latest and greatest. And Corey, we've got, if you can see on his screen, there's a Wells Fargo format, a Prime Revenue, and Bank of America. So all of those are in that latest release. I think they've been there for quite some time. If you're working with a new or another supply chain financing provider, we would just need the formats, and then we could review those as you evaluate the solution.
The SEB is the other one we have. So again, I know Prime Revenue, if I look on like top 10 SCF providers, they're on that list. And I know Bank of America got the and one of the ratings got the most popular bank version in the US of supply chain
We do
finance.
not have Citibank today, Corey, but if you wanted to send us information, we're happy to look at the formats.
Yep. Usually the handshake process is all the same. It's just the format is different. So it's just plugging a format into that library. So that's usually not the hold up on a project to get a format built. That's pretty quick. How do we get upgraded to version 12?
Yeah, I can address that.
Okay.
Existing customers and partners can go out to either the customer portal or the partner portal and make sure that your existing account is up to date. Like if you're under a current renewal, then you can put a ticket into the support desk, or you can reach out to Jennifer Courtney. For any existing customers, she's your customer success manager here in North America, and we can get you the build. And as long as you're on a current subscription with us, then you can have that latest build. At the end of this webinar, if we have time, I will put up the release updates page so that you all can see it and know where to follow that page. It's a great one to stick your email address in and get notifications. If there are no further questions on supply chain financing, I think we're going to do a little bit of a review of Bank Fabric for those that are newer to the Bank Fabric product. And then Tina's going to talk through P-card integration.
Okay, so I am sharing my screen. Hopefully you guys can see that.
Yeah, looks good to me.
Perfect. So the reason we are going to go over a little bit of Bank Fabric with this is because P-card does require you to have Bank Fabric. So for those of you that aren't aware, Bank Fabric is the hosted version of FileHub that maybe some of you are currently using, and it is how those files go to and from the bank. So as you probably know, almost everything we do either starts or ends with a file. And so Bank Fabric is a mechanism to shuttle those files back and forth in a secure channel. It does sit outside of D365, and it's a hosted version of those communications. It relieves you of having any on-prem footprint of shuttling the files to and from the bank. And it talks to your Azure subscription, so we are not storing the files. And when you have Bank Fabric, there's no reason for you to stand up your own machine to support communications going to and from the bank. Anything to add for that, Chuck, before we go on?
You kind of mentioned at the beginning, but P-card is only supported through Bank Fabric, and we will have future enhancements functionality that will only be available through the Bank Fabric interface as well. The other thing I guess we should mention is if you don't want to switch everything at once from FileHub to Bank Fabric, you can switch over module by module. So you can kind of stand up Bank Fabric, switch maybe Positive Pay over there to get used to that, and then you could switch everything else. So you can switch things a module at a time. But yeah, there will be future functionality that we are building some things into Bank Fabric that we won't build out into FileHub as well.
Yeah. Okay. So P-card, our P-card process right now, it is facilitating the easy import of expenses that are coded into a third-party system into your D365 journal. So it does allow configuration of that file in either a CSV format or a flat format, and that configuration is done in Bank Fabric. And so that basically means you can take the file from your P-card provider and you can map it to say, this field is going to be our date, this one's going to be our, main account, our project, or the various pieces of data you will be bringing in. We do support either vendor or ledger accounts. So you can either take it to a vendor, meaning it's going to be one vendor, which like your credit card statement vendor, or it could go to like a credit card clearing and hit that ledger account. Your expenses, they can be coded to either ledger or project accounting module. And so some of the extra things that we want to mention is you do have support for multiple formats in P-card. So if you're using, different P-card providers, you can have support for those different formats. And you choose the D365 journal to use. So that's going to be of the type daily. You get to decide what kind of journal or the name of the journal to use for there. And you also can determine whether or not that journal should be auto-posted. And this last bullet point, it is coming soon, is image support. So what we're going to look at today does not include image support. And when we're referring to image support, we're talking about, I go in and code my expenses in my P-card provider, so maybe Truist Bank, for example, and then I attach a receipt with that. And so in the future, when that image support comes in, that image would be able to be attached to the journal line associated with that transaction. Okay. So we don't really have we do have a format here, but we don't have standard formats. We allow you to build those all out. And that piece, as I said, is done in Bank Fabric. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to import in a P-card journal out there. Now this one does have batch jobs behind it. So similar to BankRec, that batch job can be running at any time. And if it is, it will go ahead and import in. I have just stopped mine so I can import it in now. I put it in the future. And similar to those of you that are familiar with this functionality with BankRec, I can click Import Now. I can choose my batch job or my communication that's associated with that batch job, and I'm going to click OK. And that is going to run that process immediately. So that journal is going to come in. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this. There we go. And so I'll give it just a minute because it might be doing some other things. But while that one may be finishing up, let's talk about some of these other ones that I've imported in. So this one you can see is completed. If I look at my imported history, it is going to show me that my journal was auto-posted, well, first it was auto-created and then it was auto-posted. And I can drill down from here into that journal that was created and see all of those lines that were included in the journal. This one does have an offset of ledger, or not offset, excuse me, the account type is ledger. So the offset is coming from the file. Those expense accounts are coming from the file, whether it's hitting the ledger or in this case here, that project. So my account here is a credit card clearing. If I go back one, we'll look at this home screen. I can click here and see imported transactions, and this will show me everything from that file that was imported in. Now this one, we had a journal creation error. So if I look at my imported history, we can see that the GL auto creation failed. So we brought this transactions in so I can see all my transactions out here, but the journal could not process or could not create successfully in D365. So if I want to see why that is, I can just come up here and click error log, and it'll show my line number. I don't have that many transactions, but if you have hundreds of transactions, it's useful to know what line is causing that issue. And I can see here it's because my offset account did not exist within D365. If you have multiple errors in your journal, we will track them all here and display them. So meaning you don't have to fix the one error, then try to create the journal, and then end up with additional errors. Now, I think if I did it correctly, I have set up this main account. So now I can come up here and click Create Journal. And sorry, my system is a little slow today. Okay, so we can see there my journal was created. If I look at my imported history now, we can see that that journal was auto-created. And my lines out here, we can see all of those lines. Now, in my system, my account type on the vendor is not auto-posting, so this one did not try to auto-post. But we should be able to see the one that we brought in at the beginning. So I'm just going to clear out my message here. So on this one was completed. If I look at my imported history, we have my GL was auto created and auto posted, and I can drill down here and see. This one is ledger. So this one is auto posting. So because this one's ledger, it is auto posting. So there is a question about currency conversion. So we are taking into consideration, so mine are all USD, which is the same as my reporting and accounting currency. If the transaction comes in, well, two things, I guess it depends on how your bank is sending that transaction. Some banks will convert that into USD in the file already. If they are leaving it in, let's say, for example, Euro, then standard D365 is going to come into play, and it is going to take your exchange rates that are set up there. So obviously, that could be different than what they post it as, meaning that if I post it in Euro using my exchange rate in D365, that's not necessarily going to be that bank rate. I'm not sure I understand that, but not via P-card response.
Yeah, Prasath, I think we need some more detail on that question that you have. Feel free to put any questions here around P-card as Tina's presenting.
And so right now, depending on how you are bringing this in, if you're using your account type of ledger or your account type of vendor, so the reconciliation, or, as Ainsley mentioned, this is a new feature for us, so we expect more features to be coming out. Obviously, we mentioned images, which would be tied to this journal, and you could see it here from your paperclip. But for now, the reconciliation of this, if I'm using a vendor, if each one of these transactions hit the vendor like my last one did, my reconciliation would be when I get that statement in, does everything match? Does my total of that statement match here? When you're hitting ledger, you can use the standard D365. So if I go over to my ledger settlements here, and I'm going to display my transactions. Now I have posted more since I originally put my statement in, but you can see here my credits are all out there, and you can use your ledger settlements to go in here and reconcile these. So you can use that to see what the difference is in between here. Now you can filter by date, which is probably normally what you would do, because your statement, let's say your bank statement runs from on the 14th of each month, it's going to have transactions probably from the 13th of the prior month to the 14th of that month. So you can filter by your date, and you can also use some of these filters here. One of my customers that is doing this, they are putting the statement date in as the document date. So we're going to use that document date to reconcile off using the ledger settlement. Any questions? Okay. All right, Ainsley, I will turn it back to you, I think.
Sounds good. I have got one more slide to share. The inevitable sales slide, folks. Here are your next steps. So if you are an existing customer and you're looking at the supply chain financing feature or the P-card integration, and you'd like to learn more about them, if you've got further questions, if you want to understand pricing and you're an existing customer, you can reach out to Jennifer Courtney. Most of you already know her. She's our customer success manager, and her email address is on the screen there. If you're newer or you're a partner, if you're a prospect of ours and evaluating these solutions as part of AP automation or banking and treasury automation from us, feel free to reach out to the person that you're working with on the sales desk, or just email sales@sksoft.com. We also, we had such great feedback last week from the audience that was on our EFT expanded webinar, and really you all voted for some things that really helped Tina and Chuck immediately present those to our product market fit group and to senior management to get buy-in. As most of you know, we have a reputation for growing this product in the direction that our customers and partners need it to go in. And so you can contribute to our roadmap discussions. There is a product form on our website. You just go to sksoft.com/product form, and you can, you know, you can be a partner, you can be a prospect, an existing customer. Anyone who knows us knows we build product based on demand. So feel free to put in suggestions and things, whether it's a product that you're using today and you'd like a usability enhancement or something to change or update in the way that you're using an existing product, or you have a new idea and you think it would be right in our wheelhouse. That's again how supply chain financing and the P-card integration ended up in our product stack, because our market came to us and said, hey, you guys should build this, and that's what we did. So feel free to go to sksoft.com/product form. Again, this session is being recorded. If you were on last week's session, you should have gotten an email from Kelly or Kay Kaczynski at sksoft.com. She sent out that recording. It might be in your junk, but feel free to reach out and request that recording. We will do the same for this session as it is being recorded. And again, reach out to us if you have any questions or need anything from us in the future. Thank you again for your time today. With that, we're going to wrap it up. You guys get some time back. Chuck and Tina, thanks again for all you did to prepare for the presentation last week and today as well. Thanks everybody, and have a good day.
Thanks everyone.